Finding out that Hitch passed away really tore me up for a little bit. It's like we lost a great mind off the earth, like someone like Aristotle had died. And there are a lot of people that are going to say he deserved this because he was trying to ruin Christianity and stuff. No man ever deserves the sorrow and hurt, pain and loss and dwindling away that cancer causes a human being. Granted, he may have only lived 15, 20 years longer, and hardening of the arteries or something would have taken him in, like most people, but he really didn't deserve to get cancer, and no one does, whether it's your own mom, a preacher, a baby, an animal. It's something we're going to have to really look into. But the reason I'm making this is because new information has come out that vindicates Hitch. And I think if it would have came out maybe 10 years ago, this man would have been giggling his ass off. And so for Hitch, I'd like to share some information with you. We have recently found out something that I've kind of known and been tracking down for about 20 years, that there is a big suspicion on the New Testament, the fact that no one can find Jesus Christ or any mention of him till 300 AD and how it all works out. And now it has been all but proven. But like any theory, it must be given its weight. And whenever you find the information, it kind of sags that side of the scale down very hard. That the Emperor Titus, when he came down and destroyed Jerusalem, was actually the Armageddon that the Jews had been waiting for and felt they so much deserved for what they had done in the name of God. And the entire Jesus story is actually fabricated by Greek and Rome to pull them into the pantheon and to act like Rome always did, where people don't know it if they don't study Greek and Roman lit, but all these people from their pantheon are from not their city. They're from not their town, not their area, but the entire world. Anybody that had a god that they ran into, they deified. Most of the gods of the pantheon do not come from there. As an example, Kronos, the Phoenician, who also is known by Saturn, and in the Levant area was known by El, just El, right? He was the change, he was the turning point, and El is a definite turning point. People are going down a line and then, they take a big turning point. El, but it's spelled E-L. And one way to prove that the God of the Bible is this El is by looking at the names that are in the Bible. Because all the names in the Bible are meant, and it's some strange, sad allegory that people would name their kid, "Thee who avenges, he who avenges God." Yeah, right. When your baby's born, you pull him out and you go, "Oh boy, look how beautiful his name is going to be, he who avenges." And it's just foolishness. It's foolishness to think that. But let's look at all those names. Let's see if we can't find L in your Bible real quick for Mr. Hitch here. Well, the council of gods of the El Pantheon were known as the Elohim, and I'll be damned if that's not in the Bible, quite frequently mentioning the council of God or calling it gods. They are the Elohim. They are run by the elders. They are considering themselves somewhat elite when they do this. They take over an area that's a place of worship, and it is known as a Temp El or a Chap El. You read about this in the Bible El. This god of the Canaanites, known as El, ends up being the Canaanites of the Hebrews. And it is all the way through. If you're real careful and you go through there, you can see them feign from God 3 different times, and whenever they come back to, again, not the God of creation. Joshua 24:2 tells you that Abraham was the first one to leave Ur and leave behind the people that worship the God of the flood and Adam and Eve. He claims them to be idol worshippers and that they aren't true, which is a strange thing now that we're finding out that Arada and the Sumerian civilization is pretty much the primordial people on the planet that did rise above. And it is from that rising above of intervention that caused the rest of mankind to follow beyond. And that they were Caucasian blue-eyed people, much like Mr. Hitchens here. And whenever the whole middle area of the earth started to go to crap and become a wasteland, they left Egypt and the Levant area and moved north into what now is no longer frozen over and a colder climate, but the good place to live. And they called it Rome and Greece, Anatolia, and all the places that they named before, Trojans and so on. It all comes out of this. It all comes out of it. But look at my video on Josephus, a Flavian liar. Or I'm sure I'm about to put together one that's probably a little more in depth than that. And on Flavian liar, I'll leave you a point to that one too. You can also look at the truth of Armageddon and when it's going to come, because this doomsday cult that has 60% of the planet thinking, fuck it, it's all going to go away shortly anyhow, is really not helping us to advance as a race. And Hitch tried to tell you this for 35 years and was just looked at as some guy that just hates religion or some kind of silly shit. Well, once all this information gets out, that silly shit that man used to talk about is going to be what people are going to have to look back through again to go, yeah, what'd he say? Oh, damn, he's right again. Oh, God, he's right again. It just keeps, it's going to be slapping you in the face for a few generations probably until we get this all cleared out, because once we figure out Christianity and the old Bible, Old Testament is actually bullshit, then that, of course, makes Islam bullshit, and so on, and it just falls apart. And we're going to have to figure out something new to worship. And what we should start worshiping is the knowledge that we can attain as a race. If we want to continue to believe in God, that's fine, but the new God that we believe in will not have had supposedly so much finger in everything that gets done, because now we can prove that he ain't got no fingers. He has done nothing. His omnipotence is not shown through the record in any way, shape, or form. In fact, whenever they try to give you the best things that happen in the Bible, he parted the Red Sea for Christ's sake. Well, no, he didn't. That word is Yam Suf in the original Bible, and always has been. And that word means reed sea, not Red Sea, and something that people have known for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And yet they still tell the story. And whenever they show the 10 Commandments with Cecil B. DeMille on TV, they don't put a disclaimer right when that starts to happen and go, modern information has found out that, no, they just walked through a sea of reeds. No one ever came to the conclusion, though, that it just shows them walking across there and how they would have to go down 160 to 220 foot jagged drop before they hit the sand bed and went across. And they went on the other side and then have to climb back up, which would take a professional mountain climber with gear, carabiner, ropes, everything, for each person to go up and down. It would take a long period of time, and I'm not sure the old people, the kids, and all the animals in the carts, and everything that they supposedly took out of there could make it out of there. Clearly, if there was over 1 million people taken out of there, I mean, 650,000 were just the male warrior, so it wasn't anybody below 20 years old or less, 15-ish or so, or any of the elders. And it easily, or women, and it would easily break over 1 million people. In fact, people have said it gets over 2 million, close to 2 million people. Well, if you had 2 million people lined up in Egypt to go to Sinai and didn't do the doodly stupid that they did and just went to Sinai, that at the point that the first people would make it in Sinai, there would still be people left in Egypt. The entire population of Egypt at that time wasn't even as large as they try to come out to being, where they could have taken that amount of population away. It's foolish. New information has come out, which part of it has been known for a long time, that the ancient pharaohs were actually Caucasian. They had red and blonde hair and auburn hair that was straight. There's not necessarily an Afrocentric model that can go with any of this. And it actually kind of shows you a weird thing, that it looks like the Greeks had come down and started that religion there, and they were in cahoots along with Babylon, and they were all kind of together as a big trade thing, and the people of the Persian area that came in the middle were literally just left this area when they all went out of it, and whenever they took over it, they found all this information, and instead of making it into allegory and things, they embraced it as being a god. Clearly, the Hebrews can't be shown up as being even existent until the time of King Cyrus of Persia. And in fact, we find stories in the Bible that show that it wasn't them. It was the Akkadians. It was these guys. It was those guys. It was, the Ammonites. Whenever Jacob, and they're just taking credit for it apparently, because there's no physical sign of anybody other than Akkadians doing this, unless you say, oh, they were with the Akkadians. Well, being a slight minor mercenary force is not what the Bible tells either. So now your Red Sea's out, all this incredible stuff. Jacob's supposed to kill off all these cities. They can only attach 3 of them within one person's lifetime. One of those 3 is known to be an abandoned city. The other one would be Jericho, and that you would try to attach. Well, Jericho at this time would have been a small 2-horse town that didn't have a wall. That it takes about 600 years later before they have a wall that someone else, not even the Hebrews, knocked down. Archaeologists have found this, and it's like, wow, so this whole thing of Jacob's trouble never really went down that way. And an interesting thing can be found if you just research this, that the ancient Phoenician word for the planet that we know as Saturn was Israel. Spelled exactly the same way, the same ideogram, the same everything. And so now you can probably look at the Bible and say every time that it says Israel or Jacob, that they're trying to talk about Saturn and give you that Roman Saturn god. Well, Saturn, why would Rome god be there? Well, Saturn was a satyr, and the people of Levant were looked down upon by the Romans, who all had fabrics and ate grapes at the time, as being somewhat barbaric, and because they still wore animal skins. And so they depict him as being half animal skinned goat people. And of course, this is our depiction of the devil, right? And you find that Pluto came from the same area, and Pluto has the pitchfork, the trident. And now all of a sudden you've got this half goat guy with a trident going on, and there's your depiction of what we know as Satan. And Saturn and Satan aren't far away. In fact, you can do the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation a whole lot quicker than 6 by saying that Saturn was known by the Chaldeans as Stur, but named by the Persians as Shaitan. The Persians and the Hebrews have an SH sound on their S, and if you Latinize it, it becomes Satan. Now, in the Bible, always Satan is just an adversary. It's what they try to say, it's an adversary, but then again, they've equated it nowadays with being the devil. Well, if you read through the Bible, they've killed off Satan a few times already. Just doesn't come across as well. And so you look into this more and you find out that, they actually used to worship El. The house of God is Bethel, where house is Beth, and El is the name of God. He's known by El Elyon, El Olam, El Shaddai, all these names. Hilariously, El Shaddai actually means God of the 2 big breasts. or the two mountains, is Shaddai is actually female. Shad is actually the Hebrew word for a female's breast. And when these people call on God Almighty, they're calling on titties. Isn't that disgusting? And now we have things disgustingly happening in America like New Black Hebrew Israelites, where the people that came out of Africa that were primitive as slaves have now said because they were in slavery, and the Bible talks about slavery, that it was them that actually had something to do with this, and that they weren't just, primitive people that were still living in mud huts at the time without a written language, which is the truth. And nobody wants to belittle a people in saying so. But if they're going to jump up and say we created everything and the rest of the world knows it's a lie, it just makes them into fools. And I thought we were trying to keep black people from looking like fools. And it's hard for us to keep doing that when they keep doing things like this, it's hellish. Hey, look into it. You want to find a communist in America in the 1950s and 60s? Look up what the JFK files said about Martin Luther King and how that he was put in place as a communist dissident to cause black people to rise up. And they thought they had failed until the new modern things coming in, and it finally took off. But if you notice, it took a generation of somebody's parents believing in this bullshit and telling it to their kids, and then that riles them up. They all get together, and now they got it all figured out. The only thing they haven't figured out is how to explain to people how they went back and regressed into mud huts and lost technology and turned into primitives, really probably less than the American Indians had going on, or somewhere at that same level. And that how are they doing that to try to prove to everybody that it was just a fake thing, that they just faked it all, faking it. We faked it all the way through slavery and everything, but now all of a sudden we remember. Or we get lied to. Or we become racist ourselves. After 89 years of slavery in America from 1776 to 1865, that in the 89 years that we had in slavery, they somehow call it 400 now. Because we weren't in America before then. We were actually New England. People that actually study things know this. And that we only had them captive for 89 years, and they've actually been out of captivity for much longer. They hold Whitey accountable, and actually it was the Spaniards who took 92% to 94% of the slave trade to Spain for Spanish cane fields that all went bust. And then the Americans only took 4 to 6% of the slave trade that ever happened into America, but we treated them much better, and they grew into a great people that helped us build our nation. Yeah. So you can really only look at it as 1776 to 1865, and you get 89 years out of it. And we're fastly approaching on double the amount of time free after that. And we're fastly approaching on double the amount of racism caused by these people. And it's odd that they go against white people, because the white people spent the least amount of time enslaving them, and we're the ones that freed them. Not just from America, but we got the world to follow suit, because it was bullshit. Something that we were trapped under, and the reason we left England in the first place. And the reason we left God and everything out of our Constitution was the fact that we saw what it had done to all the civilizations we were leaving behind, and we were going to a brave new world where this bullshit would not stand. And I wonder if the forefathers today, if you were to raise them from the dead, would actually come up and go, yeah, this is exactly what we thought it would be like, or would they be in horror of what we've actually turned it into, and how America has braced the religious beliefs and had it adopt the Constitution and change it all for religious beliefs. Anyhow, I know a lot of you probably clicked on here that are Hitch lovers and said, oh, he's probably talking shit about Hitch, because look, the picture shows him whenever he's starting to have his cancer and everything, and they thought he deserved it at some Christian babble. No, but I'm glad you used that to get here too. But this was a great man, a great thinking man of our age, who is sorely missed. And it's sad that he is only going to be paid attention to in essence after he passed away, trying to tell us his whole life of what the truth was. Hey, I appreciate y'all. Look at some of my other videos, and you can see the truth and how it comes out. And if he would have known this information, he would have thrown it in their face a long time ago. So I'm throwing a pie in the face for him. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Like if you like the information you found. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. And Hitchens too. Not really.